how the industry sees the future of creation, production, and layout? Join the Dell global team of media experts for Dell Technologies Media Live, a virtual event with a lively TV broadcast format. The event will include short interviews with leading vendors, industry analysts, and your industry peers. It's an opportunity for you to gain deeper insights into industry trends and to learn how others are creating lower friction collaborative workflows. Discover new tools to support your priorities, achieve outcomes faster, and uncover more value for your organization. Visit dell.to/virtual-m-e to register or view on demand. Again, that's dell.to/virtual-m-e.
Dee McClelland, you were the head colourist on Miss Fisher and the Crypt of Tears.
That's right. When you say head colourist, there's only one. It's not like an American movie where there are teams of people. So it was just my good old self.
Miss Fisher, the film's a spin-off of the TV series based on the novels. And,
that's correct.
And this one's set in the Middle East, in Jerusalem.
Yeah, and it's filmed in Morocco.
Now, you also worked on the TV series, didn't you?
Yes, in fact, I worked on all the TV series for Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, which date back to, I think, 2012 was the first series that went to air and continued to 2015. So I believe it's been one of the highest rating TV shows that's come out of Australia, so they're very proud of that work.
Can you describe the challenges and differences between the TV series and working on this feature?
Well, some of the challenges are much the same. Of course, we're having to make a contemporary environment look like it was set in the 20s, so there's quite a deal of visual effects work that go into to remove things that shouldn't be in the background. With the feature itself, there was a lot of locations that were mocked up that didn't exist. For instance, their meeting on the bridge in London was basically all green screen that had to be dealt with by Scott Zero at Visual Effects and his team. So they're kind of similar in many ways. I think the major difference is that we're seeing it on a big screen, so every minute detail has to be crafted carefully so that it looks as excellent as it can on a large screen. So for instance, a TV series, an episode of Miss Fisher, I'm given a day and a half, maybe 2 days for a 30-minute TV episode, whereas for a feature film, I was given 10 days for The Grave, and that included half a day for Rec 709 Pass. So you get a bit more time to craft, but then you have a larger group of people in there working with you, wanting their piece of the puzzle, involved in the final product. So it's more collaborative, it's more involved as a feature film than it is for a TV episode. What's
your primary platform for grading?
Well, with the TV series, I was actually on Lustre, which is an Autodesk product that was at Digital Pictures. Then by the time we got to 2018, 2019, I was a freelance colorist and now working primarily on Blackmagic Resolve, which is pretty much in every post-production facility these days, whereas the Lustre itself I don't think exists in Melbourne anymore. I'm not entirely sure that there's any of them anywhere in Australia at this moment. So yes, I had to change modalities, but the technique for colour grading pretty much remains the same no matter what kind of equipment you're starting with. Basically getting a good balance to begin with, understanding what it is the cinematographer is trying to achieve. Now, Roger and I have been working together since the first series of Miss Fisher and have done a number of features together as well. So everything sort of feels pretty second nature to me with regard to the pictures he shoots. I can kind of tell what he'd like to keep, what he'd like to drop away into the darkness in the background. So by the time we had the first grade review, he was rapt. He came in for a review and changed very little. There were just some things that he wished he could have lit a bit more or darkened a bit more, or maybe let's not make that gun so obvious, those kind of things. So we had a pretty efficient kind of grading setup and efficient grading review. So it went really well.
So over the years, you guys have developed a language.
I would say so. Most of my clients, it kind of ends up like that. It makes it a much more easier process, particularly these guys and women who are out busy shooting their next project and don't always have the time to sit in the grade suite. So it's fantastic having that kind of shorthand, and I can understand what it is he's after just by seeing what's on the screen. And I think he relies on that too. It makes his life a bit easier. He doesn't have to go into minute detail about what he wants. It's all kind of almost spot on by the time he sees the first review. So it's good.
The feature film, as you said, is set in Jerusalem but shot in Morocco. Was there anything about the the change in location which was either influencing you or you had to keep an eye out for?
Not particularly. I mean, the colour palette was quite different over there, and we enhanced the glorious colours wherever we could. The number one priority, of course, is to make sure Phryne looks fantastic. So looking after her complexion or, tiny bit of beauty treatment here and there just to help her along on the big screen. Roger really controlled the lighting pretty well. There wasn't I was expecting there to be a lot of harsh contrast and having to work pretty hard to keep that nice and even, but he controlled it really well. He made my job pretty straightforward. Between Melbourne and what was shot in Morocco, no, I don't feel that I handled the pictures any differently. We just, as I say, enhanced the natural colour palette that existed in Morocco and made sure that Melbourne had usual Melbourne look, which can be any season at any time. Just keeping things even and keeping the focus on the actors is usually the key.
You mentioned there was a bit of VFX work. Who was undertaking that? That
was Scott Zero at Chroma.
Okay.
The name of his company. So there was a lot of touring and flying with that. I mean, this scene on London Bridge, I'm not entirely sure which bridge it is, but there's a view of London in the background. There was a lot of backwards and forwards with that about would there be smoke coming out of those stacks? Should we have some more seagulls in the background? And just a lot of what would it really be like at that time? So a lot of research and getting all those little details right. Particularly, and I think this is what the difference is between the big screen and something for TV. Probably wouldn't have spent quite as much time in detail because it's on the screen and off again pretty quickly for TV, but it's up there. It's larger than life for a feature film, and they went to extraordinary detail to get it right.
With Resolve, what do you find easy, and what might be improved?
Look, I have to take my head off to Resolve. They're always working to improve things now that they have such a huge user base that people are putting their hands up and saying this needs to be sorted and this isn't working. So they're keeping on top of a lot of things. Mm-hmm. That's both good and bad in that you'll go into the suite and find they've upgraded the software and now you have to figure out where all the buttons are, where all the shortcuts are. So its advantage is also sometimes its downfall for me because I can go into different places and find that there are a lot of different versions of the software and having to think backwards and forwards about where I'm going to do things. So they're really good at getting on top of things. But as I say, the changes are so rapid, it makes your head spin, especially as a freelancer. At least if you're in one place for a long time, they gradually move up through the versions of software and you get a chance to learn as you go. But some places just skip and you're bang up to version 16. You haven't had a chance to look at the manual yet or do the tutorials. So that can be a bit of a stumbling block sometimes. So as a freelancer, I have to dedicate a lot of my time when I have free time to getting up to speed with whatever's new. So Resolve's really good in that it is everywhere now and most people understand it. The team at Soundfirm can be on a Resolve in another room, popping in visual effects while I'm working on another reel in another room. So that's a real advantage of collaborative workflow that Resolve has instigated over the past couple of versions of software. So yeah, it just means that everything can keep on moving.
And what are the differences in colour space between the small screen and the cinema?
What are the differences? I think people are far more pedantic when it comes to a feature film. And so they should be because they're expecting it to be up large and on a screen for, a number of weeks around the world. So yes, I think we get far more finicky with feature films. The other thing is when guys are working on visual effects, they're often looking at it on a small screen and then they get quite surprised to see how it actually looks on the big screen. So things that might not be so obvious on TV are suddenly glaringly obvious. So there is a lot more polish, I suppose, a lot more time spent getting things right. As far as the colour space goes, as long as everybody who's working on the footage is looking at it in the same colour space, there really shouldn't be any great shocks when it gets to looking at it in a grading theatre as opposed to working on it on a monitor in the VFX house. What else could be different? I just think the team of people that are in the room with you is larger. So they've all got their own point of view, and they're all coming from a different perspective about what's important to them. So having a producer or director in the room who can say, loving your input, but this is what's really important for this scene. So yeah, I guess it's more collaborative, therefore it's a longer process.
All right, Dee, thanks very much for your time.
That's quite all right.